Tom and Myra had been dreaming about this day for a long time. After years of living in a busy city, they were finally moving to a quiet neighborhood called Maple Grove. It was a small town, filled with trees and little houses with bright gardens. For them, it was more than just a house, it was a fresh start. Tom was excited but a little nervous. He had left his job at a big company to work from home, fixing electronics and helping people with their devices. Myra was a strong and kind woman, working as the county sheriff. She helped keep people safe every day. But in this new place, no one knew who she was. Their daughter, Lily, was only 4 years old. She was curious and full of energy. She loved to run around and play with her small toys. For her, the new home meant lots of new adventures. The house they bought was not perfect. It was old and the garden was messy, with weeds growing high and the paint on the fence peeling. But Tom and Myra saw the beauty in it. They knew they could make it their own. They planned to fix the garden, paint the walls, and make the house a warm place filled with love. On the first morning in Maple Grove, Tom woke early and looked out of the window. The sun was shining, and the birds were singing softly. He smiled and whispered to himself, "This is going to be good." Myra was already busy in the kitchen, making breakfast for Lily. The little girl sat at the table, drawing colorful pictures with crayons. "Look, Mommy," she said happily, showing her drawing of a big, smiling sun. Myra laughed and kissed her daughter on the forehead. "That's beautiful, Lily." After breakfast, Tom went outside to start working on the garden. He pulled out the weeds, cleaned the flower beds, and even found an old swing hanging from a tree. He fixed the ropes and pushed Lily gently on the swing. She giggled and shouted, "Faster, Daddy." But as they enjoyed the day, Tom noticed something strange. On their porch, there was a small white envelope stuck under the doormat. He picked it up and opened it. Inside was a note from the Homeowners Association, or HOA for short. The note read, "Welcome to Maple Grove. Please remember to follow the community rules. Keep your lawn neat and do not leave toys outside. Thank you." Tom showed the note to Myra. She frowned slightly and said, "HOA rules. I remember hearing about these in the city. They can be strict." Tom nodded. "It's just a note. We'll be fine." But Myra felt a small worry in her heart. She had faced tough situations before, but dealing with neighborhood rules felt different. It felt like they were being watched. Over the next few days, they tried their best to follow all the rules. Tom cleaned the garden every morning. Myra kept an eye on Lily so she wouldn't leave toys outside. But sometimes, it was hard. Lily loved playing with her little cars on the driveway. Sometimes, Tom forgot to bring in the trash bins on time. One afternoon, as Myra returned home from work, she saw a woman standing on the sidewalk. The woman was tall, with glasses and short hair. She looked at Myra carefully but did not smile or say hello. Myra felt uncomfortable but kept walking. That evening, Tom found another note on the door: trash bins were left outside past the allowed time. Please remove immediately. This is your second warning. Tom showed the note to Myra. She took a deep breath and said quietly, "This is more serious than I thought." They both sat down and talked about it. Myra told Tom stories from her job as sheriff, how she helped people who were lost or scared, how she listened to their problems. "In my work, respect is very important," she said. "People trust me because I treat them kindly, even when things are hard." Tom smiled. Maybe the HOA doesn't know how to treat neighbors kindly. Myra nodded. Maybe not. Despite the warnings, they tried to stay calm. They didn't want trouble. But the rules kept coming, and the feeling of being watched grew. One evening, Myra sat on the porch with Lily on her lap. The little girl looked up at the stars and asked, "Mommy, why do people want to make rules all the time?" Myra hugged her tight and said softly, "Sometimes, people want things to be perfect. But perfect is not always kind." Tom joined them, holding a cup of tea. He looked at Myra and said, "Whatever happens, we're a family. We'll face it together." Myra smiled, feeling grateful for her small family. She knew the road ahead might not be easy, but she was ready. For her daughter, for Tom, and for the new life they had started in Maple Grove. The next morning, they found a small group of neighbors gathered near the mailbox. Tom and Myra said hello, and a few people smiled back. It was a small step toward becoming part of the community. But little did they know, the quiet days were about to change in ways they could never imagine. Days passed by quickly in Maple Grove, but Tom and Myra soon realized that living in this quiet neighborhood was not as easy as they thought. The small rules the Homeowners Association, HOA, had given them felt like chains. Tom was trying hard to follow every rule. Every morning, he watered the garden, trimmed the grass, and picked up fallen leaves. He wanted their house to look nice. Myra worked long hours at the sheriff's office and came home tired. Sometimes, she did not have the energy to help with small things like picking up Lily's toys or taking out the trash on the exact day. Lily loved to play outside. Her favorite game was riding her small red bike around the driveway. She would laugh and ring her little bell as she sped up and down. But every time she left her toys on the grass or sidewalk, Tom felt nervous. He remembered the notes they had already received from the HOA, and he worried about getting more warnings. One afternoon, Myra came home after a long day. She was carrying her work bag and looked tired. As she walked up the driveway, she noticed a woman standing at the end of their street. The woman was watching their house closely. She was tall and wore a tight smile that made Myra uncomfortable. Myra's heart beat a little faster. The woman was Janet, the president of the HOA. She was known in Maple Grove as someone who liked to follow every rule strictly. Janet held a clipboard and seemed to write down things about every house she passed. Myra nodded politely, but Janet just stared without saying a word. It felt cold and unfriendly. That evening, Tom found another note stuck to the door. This time it was in bright red letters, "Violation notice, your trash bins were visible past 10 a.m. Please remove immediately. This is your third and final warning." Tom showed the note to Myra. She sighed and put it on the kitchen table. "Trash bins," she said quietly. "That small thing caused so much trouble." Tom rubbed his hands nervously. "I'll take care of it tomorrow." But Myra was worried. The warnings were no longer simple notes. They sounded like threats. And no one had talked to them face to face. Lily didn't understand what was happening. She only knew that her mom and dad looked serious when they talked about the notes. One day, Tom decided to ask Janet if they could meet and talk. Maybe they could explain their side and fix the problems. He went to the small community park where Janet often spent time. When he found her, he smiled and said, "Hello, Janet. I'm Tom, and this is my family's new home. I wanted to ask if we could meet and talk about the rules. We want to be good neighbors." Janet looked at him sharply. "Tom, I know the rules better than anyone. We have to keep Maple Grove neat and perfect. It's for everyone's good." Tom nodded. I understand, but sometimes we miss small things. My daughter is young, and she plays outside. Can we work together instead of sending warnings? Janet smiled thinly. I'll think about it. Tom left feeling unsure. Janet's smile did not feel warm. It felt like a challenge. Back home, Myra was listening quietly. She thought about how she handled people in her job as sheriff. She believed that respect was not earned by rules alone but by kindness and understanding. She felt sad that her family was not receiving that here. That evening, Lily asked her mom, "Mommy, why don't our neighbors like us?" Myra hugged her daughter close and whispered, "Sometimes, people are afraid of things they don't understand. But we have to be patient and kind." Tom joined them and said, "We'll keep trying, Lily. One day, they will see how wonderful you are." A few days later, something small but important happened. Lily drew big colorful hearts on the driveway using chalk. She wanted to share her happiness with the world. Tom saw her drawing and smiled. It was full of bright reds, pinks, and blues. He thought it was beautiful. But the next morning, Myra found a new note taped to their front door: "Sidewalk defacement. Remove chalk drawings immediately. Final notice before HOA intervention." Myra's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Lily, who was playing nearby, unaware of the trouble her simple drawings caused. "This is not right," Myra whispered. Tom held her hand and said, "We will fix this. We will find a way." Despite the difficult days, Tom and Myra did not give up. They kept working on their garden, kept smiling at neighbors, and tried to follow every rule. But the feeling of being watched never left them. One afternoon, Myra came home early and found Janet standing near their mailbox, talking to some neighbors. Janet's eyes met Myra's for a moment, and she quickly looked away. Myra wanted to say something, but she did not. Instead, she smiled politely and walked inside. That night, Myra sat alone in the quiet living room. She thought about the meaning of home. Was it just a place? Or was it the feeling of safety and belonging? Myra knew that being the sheriff did not mean she was immune to fear. She, too, wanted to feel welcome and respected. Tom came and sat beside her. "We are stronger than these rules," he said softly. "We have each other." Myra nodded. "Yes. Together, we can face anything." Outside, the moon shone softly over Maple Grove. The stars twinkled, as if telling them to hold on to hope. Because, in the quiet neighborhood where rules felt like walls, the real story was just beginning. The days at Maple Grove felt heavier now for Tom and Myra. The small neighborhood, which they had once hoped would bring peace and happiness, seemed full of rules and silent judgments. Every day, they walked on thin ice, afraid to break some invisible rule and face another warning. Lily's laughter was still the bright light in their home. She was curious and joyful, always wanting to explore. But the chalk hearts she drew on the driveway had already caused trouble. The final warning from the HOA still hung on the door like a shadow. One morning, Tom woke early. He wanted to take care of the chalk drawings before the HOA could act. But when he stepped outside, he saw something that made his heart stop. Standing near the sidewalk was a man Tom had never seen before. He was wearing a blue uniform and held a notepad in his hand. Tom felt his stomach tighten. "Good morning," the man said with a polite but serious voice. "I'm Officer Grant. We received a complaint about some activity at this address." Tom looked down at his feet. "What kind of complaint?" The officer looked around carefully before answering. Someone called the HOA and then us. They reported that there was damage to the sidewalk and that it might be a safety hazard. Tom's eyes widened. That's just chalk drawings. They aren't dangerous. Officer Grant nodded slowly. I understand, sir. But we have to investigate every complaint we get. It's our job. Tom nodded, feeling frustrated but trying to stay calm. Of course, officer. Please let me know if there's anything I can do. The officer smiled briefly and left. Inside the house, Tom told Myra what had happened. Myra frowned. This is getting out of hand. Lily, sitting on the floor, didn't understand why grown ups were worried about chalk on the sidewalk. That day, Myra decided to take a walk around the neighborhood with Lily in her stroller. She wanted to meet neighbors and show them who they really were. As she walked, Myra noticed small groups of people whispering and looking in her direction. She smiled politely, but the cold looks made her feel like an outsider. Suddenly, a woman approached her. It was Janet, the HOA president. Sheriff Daniels, Janet said with a forced smile. I didn't know you were the county sheriff. Myra nodded. Yes, that's me. Janet looked down and then back at Myra. Well, we all want Maple Grove to be a safe and beautiful place. Myra kept her voice calm. I agree. That's why I want to talk about these complaints. I don't want this neighborhood to feel like a place where neighbors are afraid of each other. Janet hesitated. I suppose, but some people feel worried. They want to protect their homes. Myra looked Janet in the eyes. Protection comes from trust, not from fear. Janet looked away and walked off. Later that day, Myra sat with Tom and Lily at the kitchen table. She felt tired but determined. We can't let fear and rules break our family, she said softly. I will talk to the HOA board. We need to find a better way. Tom squeezed her hand. I'm with you. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the following week. Myra prepared herself to speak up not as the sheriff, but as a mother and neighbor who wanted peace and respect. When the day came, the small community center was full of people. Tom and Myra sat quietly near the back. Janet was there, looking serious and proud. When it was Myra's turn to speak, she stood up and took a deep breath. I am not here as an officer today, she began, but as a neighbor and a mother. My family moved here hoping to find a home filled with love and kindness. But since we arrived, we have felt watched and judged. Our small mistakes have turned into complaints. Even my daughter's chalk drawings were seen as damage. She paused, looking at the faces in the room. We all want Maple Grove to be safe and beautiful. But safety is about trust, respect, and understanding. Not about warnings and fear. I ask you, please, let us be neighbors, not strangers watching each other from behind rules. There was silence for a moment. Then a few people nodded slowly. Janet cleared her throat. The rules are important to keep order. Myra replied softly, order is important, but so is kindness. After the meeting, some neighbors came to speak with Myra and Tom. One woman said, I'm sorry for how we treated you. I didn't realize it made you feel so bad. A man shook Tom's hand and said, thank you for standing up. Maybe we can do better. Tom and Myra felt a small hope grow inside their hearts. That night, as Lily slept peacefully, Myra and Tom talked about the future. We will keep trying, Tom said. This neighborhood can change. We just have to believe. Myra smiled and looked out the window. The stars were bright. Together, she said quietly, we will make this place home. Maple Grove was still quiet when Myra decided to take her daughter, Lily, for a walk on a cool Thursday afternoon. The sky was gray and the wind was soft, carrying the scent of rain that might come later. Myra wore her favorite blue hoodie and jeans, wanting to keep things simple for their stroll. Lily bounced happily in her stroller, waving her small hands at every bird and flower they passed. Myra loved these moments, just the two of them, away from work and worries. As the county sheriff, her days were often long and difficult. But here, in this small town, she hoped to find peace and safety for her family. As they walked down the street, Myra noticed a few neighbors watching them from their windows. Some smiled politely, others whispered quietly to each other. She smiled back, hoping to build bridges. When they returned home, Myra felt relaxed and happy. She carried Lily up the porch steps and unlocked the door. Suddenly, she saw two patrol cars parked right in front of their house. Her heart stopped. Tom was already outside, looking worried. "What's going on?" Myra asked, pushing the door open. Before Tom could answer, an officer stepped down from one of the cars and approached Myra. "Ma'am," the officer said politely, "we received a call about a suspicious woman walking with a child in this neighborhood. Someone reported concerns to the HOA, and the HOA contacted us." Myra blinked in surprise. "Suspicious woman," she repeated softly. "That woman is me. I live here." The officer nodded slowly. "We are here to make sure everything is okay." Myra reached into her back pocket and pulled out her badge. She showed it clearly. "Sheriff Myra Daniels, County Sheriff. This is my home, and this is my daughter." The officer's eyes widened in shock. He looked at the patrol car, then back at Myra. Tom came closer, calm but firm. "Who made this call?" Tom asked quietly. The officer shook his head. "I don't know, sir. The call came through the HOA." Myra folded her arms. "So, someone in my own neighborhood called the police on me without knowing who I am." The officer nodded, looking uncomfortable. Myra looked at her family's house, then back at the officer. She felt a mix of emotions: surprise, frustration, and sadness. How could a small neighborhood that promised safety turn into a place where her own neighbors did not trust her? She took a deep breath and smiled gently. "Thank you for coming, officer. Everything is fine here." The officers nodded and left. Tom closed the door and turned to Myra. "This is getting worse," he said softly. "Why would someone do this?" Myra shook her head. "Fear. Maybe they don't know how to see people beyond their own worries." That night, Myra sat in the living room with Tom and Lily. The soft light from the lamp made the room warm and quiet. "I don't want to be angry," Myra said, "but I want to understand." Tom held her hand. "People can be afraid of what they don't understand. But we can help change that." Myra nodded slowly. "I've faced hard things at work, but never thought I'd be judged in my own neighborhood like this." Lily crawled into Myra's lap, hugging her tightly. "Mommy, don't be sad," she said in her small voice. Myra kissed her daughter's forehead. "I won't, baby. We will be okay." The next day, Myra decided to visit the HOA office. She wanted to speak with Janet, the HOA president. Maybe talking face to face would help. When Myra arrived, Janet looked surprised to see her. "Myra, I didn't expect you here," Janet said. "I wanted to ask who made the call to the police," Myra said calmly. Janet looked away. It was a concerned neighbor. They didn't mean any harm. Myra nodded. But don't you think it was wrong to call the police without knowing the facts? Janet shrugged. People want to protect their homes. Maybe they overreacted. Myra's voice was steady. Protection is good, but it must come with respect. Calling the police on a mother walking with her child, without knowing who she is, that hurts this community. Janet was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I will talk to the board. Maybe we can find a better way to handle concerns. Myra smiled. Thank you. Walking back home, Myra felt a little lighter. The road ahead was still difficult, but she believed in change. That evening, Tom and Myra sat on the porch. Lily played with her small toys on the grass. Tom looked at Myra and said, You handled that well today. Myra smiled. I had to. For Lily, for us, and for the neighborhood we want to call home. Outside, the stars began to shine, bright and clear. In the quiet of Maple Grove, a promise was born, a promise that understanding and respect would one day replace fear and suspicion. And slowly, very slowly, things began to change. Days passed since the unexpected visit from the police. Tom and Myra felt a quiet tension in the air, but they also noticed small changes beginning to happen around Maple Grove. It was as if the neighborhood was slowly waking up to something new. One sunny morning, Tom stepped outside with a cup of coffee and saw a man working in the yard across the street. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a friendly smile. His name was Paul, a retired teacher who had lived in Maple Grove for many years. Paul noticed Tom watching him and waved. Good morning, Tom. Beautiful day, isn't it? Tom smiled back. Yes, it is. I'm Tom. My family just moved here. Paul nodded. I know. I've seen you and your family around. I wanted to say welcome. Tom felt a warm feeling inside. It was the first time a neighbor had welcomed him like this. Thanks, Paul. It's nice to meet you. As the days went by, Paul made an effort to talk with Tom and Myra whenever he saw them. He invited them to small gatherings, shared stories about the town, and even helped Tom fix a broken fence in their yard. One afternoon, Myra was working on the garden when Paul came by with a basket of fresh vegetables from his garden. I thought you might like some, Paul said kindly. Maple Grove has good soil and good neighbors, too. Myra smiled warmly. Thank you, Paul. That means a lot. For the first time, Myra felt a little hope that maybe the neighborhood was changing. One evening, the HOA board sent a letter inviting all neighbors to a community picnic at the park. Myra and Tom talked about going together. I hope this picnic will help us all get to know each other better, Myra said. Tom nodded. Yes, maybe it will help the fears and rules feel less important. When the day of the picnic arrived, families gathered with food and laughter. Kids played games, parents talked, and the sun shone brightly above. Myra watched Lily run around, chasing bubbles and making new friends. She saw Janet nearby, smiling and chatting with other neighbors. It was the first time Myra saw a real smile on Janet's face toward her family. Tom joined Myra and said, This is good. People are talking and smiling. Just then, Paul came over with a plate of food. Hey, Myra, Tom, he said. I'm glad you came. This picnic is a step in the right direction. Myra nodded. I agree. We want to build a community where everyone feels welcome. Paul smiled. And that starts with small kindnesses. As the picnic went on, more neighbors came to speak with Tom and Myra. Some apologized for being distant before. Others said they were curious about Myra's job as sheriff. One neighbor, Mrs. Lee, an elderly woman who lived 2 houses down, said quietly, "I didn't know you were the sheriff. I'm sorry if I seemed unfriendly. It's just hard to trust new people." Myra took Mrs. Lee's hand gently. "I understand. Trust takes time." Mrs. Lee smiled. "You're welcome here." By the end of the day, Myra and Tom felt a new feeling, belonging. But the road wasn't without bumps. The next morning, Tom found a small note taped to his mailbox. It read, "Thank you for joining us at the picnic. Let's keep Maple Grove safe and kind." Tom showed Myra the note, and they both smiled. It was simple, but it meant a lot. Later that day, Myra received a call from the sheriff's office. There was an emergency nearby, and she had to leave quickly. Tom packed a bag for Lily, and Myra kissed her family goodbye. At the scene, Myra worked calmly and carefully, helping a family who had lost their way in the woods nearby. Her job was hard, but she never forgot why she did it: to protect families, to help neighbors, to keep everyone safe. When she returned home late that night, Tom and Lily were waiting. They hugged tightly. "Thank you for what you do," Tom said softly. Myra smiled, tired but proud. "I do it for all of us." As Myra looked out the window, the stars shone bright once again. She knew the journey in Maple Grove was far from over, but now, they had something stronger: a community that was starting to heal. And with every small act of kindness, the walls built by fear and rules began to fall. The days in Maple Grove were slowly becoming brighter for Myra and Tom. After the picnic, they noticed small changes: neighbors smiled more, waved when they passed by, and conversations grew longer and warmer. Still, not everyone had opened their hearts yet, and the memories of past misunderstandings lingered like quiet shadows. One chilly morning, Myra was in the kitchen making breakfast when Tom came in with a thoughtful look on his face. "I met someone interesting yesterday," he said, pouring coffee. Myra smiled, curious. "Who?" "Mrs. Lee. You know, the lady from down the street. She invited me for tea." Myra's eyes lit up. "That's wonderful. What did you talk about?" Tom laughed softly. "Everything. She told me stories about Maple Grove from many years ago: how the neighborhood used to be close-knit, how people helped each other. She said she hopes it can be that way again." Myra nodded. "Maybe we can help bring that back." That afternoon, Tom went to visit Mrs. Lee. She lived alone in a cozy house full of plants and old photographs. As they talked, Tom realized how much wisdom and kindness she carried. She listened carefully to his hopes and fears about the neighborhood, and in return, she shared memories that made him smile. When Tom came back home, he told Myra everything. "We need more people like Mrs. Lee," he said. "People who remember the good and believe in better." Myra agreed. "Maybe we can start a small group, a neighborhood circle where we all meet and share ideas." Tom smiled. "I think that's a great idea." The next week, Myra spoke with Janet, the HOA president, about the idea. Janet was cautious but agreed to help organize the first meeting. The day of the meeting arrived, and Myra, Tom, and a small group of neighbors gathered in the community center. There was nervous energy in the room as people sat around the big table. Myra started by saying, "Thank you all for coming. We want to build a community where everyone feels safe, respected, and heard." One by one, neighbors shared their thoughts. Some talked about their concerns. Others spoke about their hopes. Paul, the retired teacher, suggested community cleanup days. Mrs. Lee offered to host book clubs. A young mother named Sarah talked about organizing playdates for children. Myra listened carefully, feeling a warm glow inside. This was what she had dreamed of. As the meeting ended, Janet stood up. I want to thank everyone. This is a good start. Let's keep working together. After the meeting, several neighbors approached Myra and Tom with smiles and kind words. It felt like a new beginning. That evening, Myra sat on the porch with Tom and Lily. The stars twinkled overhead, and the air was fresh and cool. Do you think things will really change? Lily asked softly, hugging her mother. Myra smiled. Yes, baby. Change takes time, but every small step matters. Tom kissed Lily's forehead. We are lucky to have you, Myra. You are strong. Myra looked at her family and felt grateful. But the true test of their new beginning came soon. One afternoon, Myra was at home when she heard a loud noise outside. She rushed to the window and saw smoke rising from the house 2 doors down. Without hesitation, Myra grabbed her jacket and ran outside. Neighbors were already gathering, and someone was calling 911. Myra quickly took charge, calming the crowd and checking if anyone was inside the burning house. She found the elderly Mr. Wilson, who was coughing and struggling to breathe. Gently, she helped him out and moved him to safety. The fire department arrived shortly after, and Myra stayed nearby, comforting neighbors and helping where she could. Tom and Lily arrived soon, and Myra hugged them tightly. News about Myra's quick action spread through Maple Grove. People started talking not about rules or complaints but about the sheriff who saved a neighbor's life. The next day, several neighbors came to the Daniels house, bringing food, flowers, and thanks. Mrs. Lee said softly, "You showed us what it means to be a true neighbor." Paul smiled. "You reminded us all why community matters." Myra felt overwhelmed but happy. She knew this was only the beginning of a long journey, but today, Maple Grove felt a little more like home. That night, Myra looked out at the quiet street, now peaceful under the moonlight. Tom sat beside her. "We've come far," he said. Myra nodded. "And we will keep moving forward. Together." As the stars shone bright, the Daniels family knew that no matter what challenges came next, they would face them with courage, love, and hope. The months passed, and Maple Grove began to change in ways Tom and Myra had only dreamed about when they first moved in. The cold silence between neighbors was slowly replaced by warm greetings, friendly smiles, and helpful hands. The community they longed for was coming to life. After the fire incident, something in the neighborhood shifted. People saw Myra not only as the sheriff but as a neighbor, a protector, and a friend. The walls of fear and misunderstanding that once divided them were slowly breaking down. One Saturday morning, the Daniels family woke up to a special surprise. At the end of their driveway, a colorful banner hung between 2 trees. It read, "Welcome home, Daniels family." Below the banner, a group of neighbors gathered with balloons, flowers, and smiles. Children ran around, laughing, while adults greeted Tom and Myra warmly. Myra felt tears in her eyes. She held Lily's hand tightly and looked at Tom. "We did it," Tom whispered. Myra nodded. "We really did." Janet, the HOA president, stepped forward with a small box in her hands. She smiled shyly. "We wanted to thank you," Janet said. for your patience, your kindness, and for helping us all remember what community means." Inside the box was a handmade scrapbook filled with pictures, notes, and drawings from neighbors and children. Lily looked inside and saw her own chalk drawings, now framed by smiles and kind words. "That's my art," she said proudly, hugging her mother. Myra smiled. "Yes, baby. Now everyone knows it's part of our home." After the celebration, the neighbors gathered for a picnic in the park. Stories were shared, songs were sung, and new friendships were made. Myra sat with Tom, watching Lily play with other children. She felt a deep peace settle inside her heart. Later that evening, as the sun set, Myra and Tom walked hand in hand along the quiet street. "Do you remember how hard it was in the beginning?" Tom asked. Myra laughed softly. "How could I forget? It felt like we were strangers in our own home." Tom nodded. "But we kept believing. We never gave up." Myra looked up at the stars. "And sometimes, that's all you need, hope and courage." Tom stopped and looked at her. "I'm proud of you." "Proud of us." Myra squeezed his hand. "We did it together." At home, Lily was already asleep, dreaming of chalk hearts and happy neighbors. Myra sat by the window, thinking about the journey they had traveled. The fears, the misunderstandings, the challenges, they had all been part of the story. But so was the love, the kindness, and the strength of a family who refused to give up. As she turned off the light and closed her eyes, Myra whispered softly, "This is home." And for the first time since they arrived, that word felt true, deep and warm, like a hug from the heart.